Good morning, everybody. Today's demonstration slash lecture, or whatever you want to call it, will be short unless some of you have questions about your final assignment or any other assignments that you happen to be working on. What I want to do today, and this pertains to Lightwave, is that, I've asked for at least two camera angles, two shots for your final assignment. And there's a fairly quick and easy way of doing that in Lightwave. And I would imagine the same could be done in Blender if you're using that, or any other program for that matter. You just have to make sure that you have the timeline below. And that's what I'm working with at the moment. And what we have is the current camera, so you can see. And in Lightwave, this is typically the default camera view that you'll see. It's sort of a frontal view. Nothing really specific or special about it. If we want, sometimes you have to toggle back and forth between wireframe and VPR to see, to be able to move the camera fairly rapidly, but this is just a single object, so it shouldn't be too much of a problem. So what I want to do, I said this will probably take 10 minutes tops, is that you'll notice at the timeline down below, let's look at that. It's marked off at 30 frames per second. So each one of these little tick marks represents a separate frame. And at the 30 mark here, we will see that, that's 1 second in time. It's not so much the time that we're concerned about. It's to be able to move the camera and position it at different points in time so that we can drag the playhead, scrub it to a different keyframe that we create, and then do a rendering of it at that point in time. By default, if we look right here, we'll see that the auto keyframe is turned on. You can turn that off if you wish. And then when you're ready to create a keyframe, then the little button below, you will click on that. It says create keyframe. And then you also have the option below. If you want to remove a keyframe, you can delete a keyframe. I'm going to leave auto on for the moment. And let's say this is our first position that we want, and that's a given. If I go ahead and I switch to render mode here, and I select render frame, and I've already set up my render properties, and I've set up my camera settings, it will render precisely what you see. But let's say I want to see it from a different angle now, and I don't want to move the chair, I just want to move my camera. And I think that really is the best position to take, because when you move the chair, then it affects it in its relationship to the lights and everything else. It's better just to move the camera. Imagine if you were, taking a photograph in the real world. You don't restage your setup and leave the camera in position. I mean, I suppose you could, but that wouldn't be advisable in most situations. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move my playhead to frame 30. And now what I can do is I can make sure that I have the camera selected. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to move the camera. I can either do that from perspective view, I can do that from top view, or I can just use these little sliders to the right here. So with the camera selected, I should be able to just click and drag. So let me move the camera over. Let me go ahead and hit Y for rotate. And I'll go ahead and I'll rotate it over a little bit. So we can see it more now from, I want to see it from a 3/4 view. So I'm going to go ahead and move it over a little bit more. So go ahead and move that like so. And then I'm going to hit Y for rotate and rotate it again. So maybe this is, you know, a second camera angle that I want to see, or maybe I want to see the camera, the chair from behind, but it doesn't really matter. I'm going to go ahead and position this. So now you'll notice that I have a keyframe set. There's a little tick mark here at 0. And when I move it back, you'll see I have one set at 30. So now I can go ahead and I can do a rendering at frame 0, and I can slide ahead, and I can do another rendering at frame 30. Now let's say I decide that I want to do another shot of this. And let's do one from kind of a bird's eye view. So I'm going to go ahead and slide this to frame 60. And again, we're going to go ahead and I'm going to move the camera. So I'm going to hit key for move. Again, make sure that the camera down here is selected. I'm going to right click to reposition. And I'm going to move it maybe forward like so. And then I'm going to hit Y, and then I'm going to reposition this. Maybe I need to zoom out just a little bit. So let me go ahead and I'm going to switch to another thing that I can do, because I'm a little bit too close to this. I mean, if I wanted a really tight close-up shot, then I can leave this as is, because it's already set up another keyframe for me. But if I wanted it a little bit further away, and again, see as I scrub through the timeline, and I go to each of the keyframes, I have a different shot. So within the same scene, I can have as many different shots as I want. A nice close-up. I can have one that's a 3/4. And as I move it here, maybe I've decided that this is a little bit too high. So I can go ahead and with the move tool, I can go ahead and I can move. Whoops, I don't have that. Let's go ahead and make sure the key is selected. I can go ahead and I can move that down a little bit to center it a little bit better. And it automatically resets. And that's it. Now, so this gives me a nice view of my chrome chair here. Now, maybe there's another thing that I want to do that maybe I've worked in perspective view. So what I can do is I can switch now maybe to frame 90. So I'm sliding ahead. I kind of like working in increments of 1 second. And I'm going to switch from camera view to perspective view. Okay. And see, that goes back to our original setting. And now what I can do is I can go ahead and let's say, sometimes it's much easier to get, you know, a different shot that you're going for, viewing it in perspective view. That maybe this is what I was going for from my, my bird's eye view, more of a back view of the chair, but from, you know, up above. But now when I go back to the camera view, it's kind of hard to match that. Well, I have an option over here, and it's right next to the final render. There's a little button or a little down arrow here. And you'll notice that it says, if we scroll down a little bit, we can match, I don't want to match viewport. I want to match camera. So where is it? I want to match, yeah, match viewport perspective to new camera or just the selected camera. So if I want to create a new camera, and you can have multiple cameras, but remember, I'm only using one camera right now. In the gallery that I created, I have maybe 6 cameras because there are actually three separate galleries. So I'll have a couple of cameras in each, one kind of as a test camera and the other for different final renderings that I have set different keyframes for each of these. So let's go back to our camera view here. And you can see here's our new camera view. And if I slide it back here, there's our close-up that again is from, it's not a bird's eye view, but it's from a higher angle. And then if I want one again from a 3/4 view, that's maybe eye level or slightly below eye level. And here's my default kind of front view. So there you have it. We're using the timeline to establish keyframes so that we can drag and we can, the slider or drag, scrub, I should say, the timeline to position it to the different keyframes that we've created so we can do different renderings from different camera angles. Okay. And then I've also shown you here that if you want, what you can do is that if we switch back to from camera view to perspective view, okay, so here's our perspective view. What I can also do is that I can, if I decide from here that I want a totally different, camera angle, let's do it from kind of a worm's eye view. Oops, I don't want to do that. Let's look at from below, like so. So I really get, a sense of this object being three-dimensional and seeing it from almost every angle possible. But then if I so decide that I want to change the, instead of that bird's eye view, if I want to change that to the worm's eye view, I could come down here and make sure that the keyframe is at the correct timeline, or I could go ahead and I could move it to an entirely new timeline here. A new point in time, I should say, not a new timeline, but then come over here and then come down to match viewpoint perspective and just say with selected camera. And now I have, in fact, another one. So if I switch back another, point of view at a different point in time. Now, if I go back to the camera view, go back, and here we have it from a worm's eye view. We go back here. Here's another bird's eye view from the back. Here's another one. It's a nice tight shot from an elevated view. There's another one, nice, almost, depending on the size of the object, this could be another eye level, but from a 3/4, and here's a frontal view. Pretty straightforward, pretty simple. Okay. That's all I had to cover today. What I will do on Wednesday is I know that I haven't talked about Blender, and some of you are using Blender. So I wanted to start some, they won't be my own videos, but there'll be some on YouTube and there will be some on lynda.com. In the remaining time that we have, if there are questions from you, I will answer those first. If there aren't, then we're going to watch some tutorials on Blender. And there are just thousands of them on Blender, just thousands of them. So next semester when I teach, I'll probably be more of a curator, and I will offer some hints or some guidelines, but many of the videos that I will be showing and some of the projects that I will be using will be from the tutorials that you'll see on YouTube and lynda.com using Blender. And if those of you still want to use Lightwave, you will have the tutorials that I have created online here this semester. So there you have it. Are there any questions today? If not, then we're done. It only took maybe 10 minutes to do this little tutorial. No questions? Everyone's final project is going okay. A couple of you, he's not here. Okay. I will answer Delvin in, question. Well, With the final project, as I said, you are responsible for 2 renderings. I don't want 2 from the same camera angle, but they can be one overall shot. So let's say, for example, I could have a 3/4 view, and then another one, a good one, would be a close-up, so that I can see all the details. So again, I want you to emphasize the fact that we're doing this project in a 3D modeling program, not in Photoshop or Illustrator. Does that make sense to you? So you are responsible for 2 shots. But I don't want those shots to be from the same camera angle, the same viewpoint. So one can be, you have to decide yourself which camera angle best showcases your, whatever it is that you've made. And then either do a close-up with it, which could be considered a detail shot, or again, you can view it from an entirely different angle. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it's the 2 renderings of the same object. They're just what I'm doing here. I have one chair, but it's viewed from different angles. You can't do that in Photoshop. You can't do that in Illustrator. If I wanted to do this, create this chair in Illustrator or Photoshop, this would be one drawing. And then if I went back here, in order to do this, I can't simply move the camera. I would have to completely redraw that or take another photograph of it. But in 3D modeling, that's really, I think, one of the areas that it excels for product shots, for just about anything. It could be, anything that you're doing, is that once you build a model, you surface it and you light it, you can either add multiple cameras, or you can take a single camera, as I've done today, and you can view it from, whatever you've created, whether it's a large scene like the galleries that I created, or it's a single object, and you can view it from different vantage points and do a different rendering of it, and it will showcase it, and I think done as a 3D model, not the way you would see things done in Photoshop. Does that still confuse you? Or hopefully I've clarified that. Okay, yeah, no, it's the same object. It's not different objects. It's all the same object, but just doing what I've done today. Move the camera, or if you want, you can have multiple cameras. That would be another way to work. So I can always go back, and under items, you can always add, and I can add another camera. And by default, it will set it in the middle, and you can rename it, and you can name it, close up, and you can leave the name of the other camera, the default camera, just camera, and you can achieve the same results without moving the timeline. So that would be another way of doing that. Okay. Okay. So, okay, good. Yeah, I hope it's going well for you guys. I'm still working on my gallery. I've got lots more installations that I want to do. So that'll keep me occupied over spring break. Okie doke. So that's it, a short class today. We're winding up the semester. As I said, it's everything is due by the end of next week. So if I'm missing projects for you, or if you want to redo projects, you're welcome to do that. But I would really focus on the final project and make sure that you are attentive not only to the modeling, but the lighting the surfacing. And again, get two really, strong shots, final renderings of that object, whatever it is that you chose to make, that really show it off. Show it off in its, its detail, its complexity, and everything. As I said, as we demonstrated with the toy assignment, you can take a very simple object and you can make it look really complex by working with surfacing and and lighting and adding a lot to it that way. But really showcasing it and making it, dressing it up and making it look very real. You can have probably one of the most complex models in the world, and if it isn't lighted properly, if it isn't surfaced properly, it's not going to look very interesting. You'll get lots of credit for working with a complex model. For example, if any of you have decided to do a character head or something, I will be focusing on the modeling, not on the surfacing and not on the lighting and that sort of thing, because that's a different animal altogether. But if you have chosen a fairly simple object, then I will be looking at all of those factors, how well you modeled it, how well it's been surfaced and lighted, and your composition and how, the different camera angles that you shot. Okay. So it will be all of those things combined, because it will comprise 40 to 50% of your grade. It's sort of, the final project is a culmination of everything that we've learned this semester. Okay, so if there are any questions, I'm going to go ahead and say goodbye, and that will be it. On Wednesday, we're going to start watching some, it won't be comprehensive, but it will introduce some of you to Blender. Those of you like Brenda who have been using Blender, it will probably be a kind of a review, or maybe there'll be some new features. I don't know. We'll see. Okay, so that's it today. So I'm going to say goodbye and pause the recording. And that's it. I will see everybody Wednesday. Bye-bye.